Monday morning at Skyline Global Solutions was always full of movement. Executives rushed through the glass lobby with coffee cups, tablets, and expensive briefcases. Assistants hurried to elevators. Receptionists answered calls with polished smiles. The building looked sharp, modern, and powerful. In the middle of all that motion was a man no one paid attention to. His name was Elias Carter. Elias worked as the janitor. Every morning, he arrived before most employees. He cleaned the marble floors, wiped fingerprints from the glass walls, emptied trash bins, and made sure everything looked perfect before important meetings began. He worked quietly, carefully, and with a kind of dignity that most people never noticed. To the staff, he was part of the background. One young executive nearly bumped into his cleaning cart and frowned. "Can you move that?" Elias stepped aside. "Of course." Two interns passed by and whispered. "I've never even heard him talk," one said. The other laughed. "Why would you? He's just the janitor." Elias heard them, but he didn't react. He simply continued cleaning the lobby floor as if their words meant nothing. That same day, the company was preparing for a major international meeting. Important business delegates from several countries were coming to discuss a partnership that could expand the company worldwide. Everyone was under pressure to make a good impression. And leading that meeting was the CEO himself, Nathan Reed. Nathan was known for being sharp, disciplined, and hard to impress. Employees respected him, but they were also nervous around him. He expected excellence from everyone. As Nathan entered the lobby, conversations lowered. He walked quickly across the marble floor, focused entirely on the high-stakes meeting ahead. For one brief second, he glanced at Elias kneeling near the entrance, wiping away a coffee stain. Then he looked away and kept walking. To Nathan, Elias was invisible too. But before the day was over, that quiet janitor would become the one person nobody in the building could stop talking about. By late morning, the international delegates began arriving. The lobby filled with handshakes, greetings, and polite business smiles. But almost immediately, a serious problem hit the company. The lead interpreter was missing. Operations manager Vanessa Cole stared at her phone in panic. "He's stuck at the airport," she said. "He's not going to make it." That news sent a wave of tension through the staff. Several of the guests were more comfortable speaking in their native languages, and this meeting was too important to risk confusion. Nathan Reed's face tightened. "Find a replacement," he said coldly. "We're trying," Vanessa replied, "but no one can get here in time." At that exact moment, one of the French delegates stepped toward the reception desk and began speaking quickly. The receptionist looked completely lost. Then a calm voice spoke nearby. "Excuse me, sir. I can help." Everyone turned. It was Elias, still wearing his gray janitor uniform. Before anyone could respond, Elias addressed the French delegate in perfect French. His tone was smooth, respectful, and natural. The guest's worried expression disappeared immediately. The room fell silent. Then a Japanese delegate said something from behind them. Elias turned and answered in fluent Japanese. A Brazilian guest joined in. Elias replied in Portuguese, then German, then Arabic, then Mandarin. One by one, the delegates stared at him in disbelief. So did everyone else. Nathan stepped closer, now fully focused on the man he had barely noticed earlier. "How many languages do you speak?" he asked. Elias looked at him calmly. "9. Vanessa blinked. "9. Elias nodded. "English, French, Spanish, German, Portuguese, Arabic, Japanese, Mandarin, and Russian." Nobody moved. The janitor, this quiet man everyone ignored, was suddenly the most valuable person in the building. Nathan didn't waste another second. "Come with me," he said. And just like that, Elias Carter stopped being invisible. The executive conference room was filled with tension. Important delegates sat around the polished table waiting for the meeting to begin. Senior executives shuffled papers, adjusted laptops, and exchanged worried glances. Then the door opened. Nathan Reed walked in first. Behind him was Elias Carter, still wearing his janitor uniform. Several executives looked confused. One of them whispered, "Why is he here?" Nathan answered without hesitation, "Because he's the most qualified person in this room right now." The room went quiet. Nathan motioned for Elias to sit at the table. Elias hesitated for only a moment before taking the seat. He looked calm, even though every eye in the room was on him. The meeting began. Very quickly, all doubt disappeared. Elias translated everything with incredible skill. He didn't just repeat words, He captured tone, meaning, and even business etiquette. When the French delegates raised concerns, he translated with perfect clarity. When the Japanese team discussed technical issues, he handled every detail. When the German investors shifted to formal legal language, Elias matched them smoothly. He moved from language to language like it was effortless. French to English, English to Japanese, Japanese to German, German to Arabic, Arabic to Mandarin. Every transition was smooth. The delegates were visibly impressed. One of them even smiled and said, "Your translator is exceptional." Nathan looked at Elias, then replied, "Yes, he is." For the first time, there was real respect in his voice. By the end of the meeting, what had started as a disaster had turned into a major success. The delegates were pleased. The room felt lighter. The deal was still alive. As the guests stood to leave, the French delegate shook Elias's hand and said, "You are extraordinary, Mr. Carter." Then the room applauded. Executives, assistants, and managers all clapped for the janitor they had ignored for so long. Elias stood quietly, humbled by the moment. But Nathan was already thinking beyond the meeting. He had only one question now. Who exactly was Elias Carter? After the meeting, Nathan invited Elias into his private office on the top floor. The city skyline stretched behind the glass walls, and the room felt worlds away from the hallways Elias usually cleaned. Nathan sat across from him. "You speak 9 languages," Nathan said. "You clearly understand business culture. So why are you working here as a janitor?" Elias was silent for a moment. Then he answered simply, "Because it was the job I could get." Nathan frowned. "That can't be the full story." Elias took a breath. "Years ago, I worked in language consulting, education, and translation support. I studied linguistics and comparative literature. I worked with international clients. I traveled a lot." Nathan listened carefully. "Then my wife got sick," Elias said. His voice softened. "Her treatment was expensive. I stepped away from work to care for her. I lost contracts. We lost savings. After she passed away, I was left raising my daughter alone." Nathan's expression changed. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Elias nodded. "I started applying again, but the longer I had been out of the field, the harder it became. Some people said I was overqualified. Others saw gaps in my resume and stopped calling back. Eventually, I stopped looking for a dream job and started looking for stable income." "And this company hired you," Nathan said. "Yes," Elias replied. "It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me steady pay and benefits. My daughter needed that more than I needed pride." Nathan leaned back and looked at him differently now. "What's your daughter's name?" "Maya," Elias said, smiling for the first time. "She's 14. She loves books and wants to work in diplomacy someday." Silence filled the room. Then Elias said something Nathan would never forget. "Most people never look twice at the person holding the mop." That sentence hit harder than anything else. Nathan realized Elias had never been hidden. He had simply been ignored. And now Nathan knew he had to do more than thank him. He had to make things right. The next morning, the entire office buzzed with one story. The janitor spoke 9 languages. Every hallway carried whispers. "Did you hear what happened? He saved the international meeting." The CEO had him at the table. "I heard he speaks 9 languages fluently." The same employees who once ignored Elias now looked at him with shock and curiosity. Some even looked embarrassed. At the reception desk, the woman who usually barely acknowledged him said, "Good morning, Mr. Carter." One junior executive gave him an awkward smile. "Great job yesterday." Even the interns who once laughed at him stayed quiet when he passed. But Elias remained the same. He still moved calmly. He still spoke kindly. He didn't act proud or bitter. He didn't try to embarrass anyone. That made the staff feel even more ashamed. Meanwhile, Nathan was reviewing Elias's employee file with HR. The file was almost empty. Name, Elias Carter. Position, maintenance staff. Notes, punctual, respectful, no complaints. That was it. No mention of languages. No mention of education. No mention of experience. No one had looked deeper. Nathan stared at the paper in disbelief. An extraordinary man had been reduced to a simple label because no one thought he was worth asking about. He closed the file and looked up at the HR director. "This company has a serious blind spot," he said. Then he made a bold decision. He wasn't going to reward Elias quietly. He was going to do it publicly. And what he planned next would leave the entire office speechless. That afternoon, every employee received the same message. Mandatory all-staff meeting in the main atrium. Within minutes, workers from every floor gathered beneath the tall glass ceiling. Executives stood beside interns. Receptionists stood near security staff. Even cafeteria workers came out to see what was happening. At the front of the room stood Nathan Reed. Beside the stage was Elias Carter, still wearing his janitor uniform. Whispers spread through the crowd. Nathan stepped to the microphone and waited for silence. "Yesterday," he began, "this company learned something important about itself." Everyone listened closely. "We say we value talent. We say we reward excellence. But yesterday we discovered that one of the most gifted people in this building had been walking past us every day, and most of us never truly saw him." Then Nathan turned toward Elias. "Elias Carter, please join me on stage." Murmurs moved through the atrium as Elias stepped forward. Nathan looked out at the staff. This man saved one of the most important meetings in recent company history. But what impressed me most was not only his skill, it was his humility. He carried extraordinary talent in a place where too many people failed to recognize it. A few employees lowered their eyes. Then Nathan made the announcement. "Starting today, Elias Carter is no longer part of our janitorial staff." The room gasped. Nathan continued. "He is being appointed as Director of Global Language and Cultural Relations, effective immediately." For a moment, nobody moved. Then the entire atrium erupted. People clapped, stared, and whispered in disbelief. Some looked emotional. Others looked ashamed. Nathan raised his hand again. In addition, he will receive full executive track pay, leadership support, and education benefits for his daughter. The applause became even louder. Then Nathan looked at Elias and said, "This company failed to see your value. That ends today." Elias stepped toward the microphone, his eyes wet. "Thank you," he said softly, "for finally seeing me." The room fell silent again, because everyone understood the weight of that sentence. After the atrium announcement, nothing felt the same. Elias was moved into a new office on the 18th floor. He now had a title, a desk, and the kind of respect that had been denied to him for years. But the biggest change wasn't his office. It was the people around him. The receptionist wrote him an apology note. A manager sent him an email admitting he had judged him unfairly. Even the interns came to his door and awkwardly apologized for laughing at him. Elias accepted every apology with grace. "Respect can be learned," he told them. "That matters." Nathan knew one promotion wasn't enough. So he launched a new internal program called the Hidden Talent Review. Every employee, from security guards to assistants to maintenance workers, would now have the chance to list their skills, experience, languages, education, and career goals. Nathan wanted to make sure no one like Elias would ever be overlooked again. At the leadership meeting, he said something that quickly spread through the company. "If talent only counts when it wears a suit, then we are not a great company. We are a blind one." That sentence changed everything. Slowly, the company culture shifted. Employees began greeting support staff by name. Managers started thanking cleaners and cafeteria workers. People became more aware of how casually they had ignored others before. At the center of all that change was Elias. In his new role, he thrived. He improved international communication, guided multicultural meetings, and helped the company build stronger global relationships. But what impressed people most was this. He never tried to make others feel small. He only showed them how much bigger respect could make everyone. That evening, Elias returned home later than usual. His daughter Maya was sitting at the dining table, surrounded by notebooks and school papers. When she saw him, she smiled. "You're late." He laughed softly. "Good late." Maya sat up straighter. "That means I need details." Elias sat down across from her and told her everything. The missing interpreter, the meeting, the languages, the CEO, the stage, the promotion, the new office, and the education benefits. Maya listened in silence. When he finished, her eyes were full of tears. "They finally saw you," she whispered. Elias felt his own voice catch. "Yes," he said. "I think they did." Maya stood up and hugged him tightly. "I always knew you were more than what they thought," she said. Elias smiled. "You were one of the few." She pulled back and wiped her face. "You always told me not to get bitter when people underestimate us," she said. "You said truth speaks for itself." Elias gave a small laugh. "I just didn't expect truth to speak in 9 languages." Maya laughed too, through tears. Later that night, after Elias had gone to his room, Maya wrote a note and taped it above her desk. It said, "Never judge a person by the job they do while they're fighting battles you know nothing about." That line captured the heart of everything. Not just what happened in the office, but what people had failed to understand about Elias all along. Over the next few months, Elias transformed more than one meeting. He transformed the company. International clients felt more comfortable. Communication improved. Cultural misunderstandings dropped. Deals became smoother. Elias's work brought real results. But the biggest change was the company's culture. A business magazine soon published an article titled, "The Janitor Who Became an Executive." The story spread quickly online. Nathan Reed was invited to leadership events and asked the same question again and again. "How did your company overlook a man like Elias Carter?" Nathan answered honestly, "We confused someone's job with their worth." That quote spread fast. So did another. "We almost missed brilliance because it arrived dressed in humility." Soon, other companies started similar programs to identify overlooked talent. HR teams used Elias's story in workshops. Business leaders discussed it as an example of class bias and failed leadership. Then Elias received an invitation that meant even more. He was asked to speak at an international leadership forum. Standing on that stage in a formal suit, he looked out at a room full of executives, educators, and global leaders. Then he said, "I was never invisible because I lacked value. I was invisible because people had already decided where to stop looking." The audience stood and applauded. In the front row, Maya wiped tears from her eyes. Nathan stood too and clapped louder than anyone. Months later, a new employee entered Skyline Global Solutions for his first day. He looked around the polished lobby, taking in the expensive design, the fast-moving staff, and the polished corporate atmosphere. Then he noticed something unusual. Near the coffee station, a senior executive was laughing with a receptionist and a maintenance worker. There was no awkwardness, no coldness, no invisible social wall between them. The new employee turned to the front desk. "Who's that?" he asked. The receptionist smiled. "That's Elias Carter." "The executive?" She nodded. "Yes. But before that, he was the janitor." The new employee looked stunned. The receptionist added, "His story changed this whole building." As the day goes on, the camera moves through the office. An executive thanks a cleaner. An intern holds the elevator for a security guard. A manager greets a cafeteria worker by name. Respect now lives in the little moments. Then we see Elias walking calmly through the office, confident but unchanged at heart. Because in the end, the real miracle was not just that the janitor became an executive. It was that an entire company learned to see human worth beyond job titles. Sometimes the most extraordinary person in the room is the one no one thinks to notice. And sometimes, one moment of truth can change how people see each other forever.